Is this watch correct? Because according to my watch, it is 8:3. Is this correct? 8:10. 8:5. Mine is 8:3. 8:10 is correct?
5. 8:5 is correct.
But this is 8:10. That's too much, right? Yeah, let me correct myself. 8:5. Okay, wonderful. We will use it in the afternoon. Yeah.
Today we have to do that
Yeah, I will afternoon.
in the afternoon.
Yeah. So I will keep this for me. Okay. You can send this soft copy also to my email.
To your email.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that I can keep that. Yeah. Okay. So distribute it later after the class. Okay.
This is my PhD
okay. Okay. I will have a look at this.
1,080 hundreds.
Okay.
Work.
Okay.
For today.
I will have a look at. Yeah. Okay. Good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
These chairs are too comfortable for a class, you know. I can't hardly see the heads of the people. Okay, we will continue with our discussion on world religions. Today I would like to discuss with you the ultimate goal of religion. Now, up to yesterday we had the types of religion and basically the little bit of history of religion. And also in the types of religion we discovered that there is polytheism and then henotheism and also monotheism, and from monotheism to monism. Now in our yesterday's discussion I could not give you sufficient account of monism. We will look at it today before we go into the subject proper for today. In fact, in the history of evolution of religion, gradually the monotheism, the concept of one God among many other gods, supreme God, and then finally to believe that there is only one God, no any other God. So that was the basic idea of monotheism, monotheistic tradition. So within monotheistic traditions, you don't have other gods. Now you do have the concept of angels. Now angels are, the inhabitants of heaven. But of course, angels are not God. God is only one. So this is the concept of monotheism. This concept of monotheism is in a way very interesting because it shows a pyramid type hierarchical universe, right, where God occupies the highest place, and then it comes down to the world. And then interesting thing is we will be discussing the correct characteristics of concept of God later, because as I said to you yesterday, we need to know particularly the other religions very well. Of course, we need to know our own religion. There is no doubt about that. But the kind of society we are living in, today's world, we have to know the other religions also very well. So in my next discussion, we will move into the discuss concept of God, different aspects of concept of God. But this from monotheism to monism. Now, the interesting thing is monotheism is centered around a personal God. But when the religion moves to monism, we are no longer talking about a personal God, but we are talking about a universal principle. Okay? So this universal principle is impersonal. It is not the person. Universal principle is impersonal. Now, the good candidates for this kind of monotheistic belief is what we find in the Indian tradition, Advaita Vedanta. Now, Advaita Vedanta has this concept of Brahman. The concept of Brahman starts with the concept of Brahma, masculine gender concept of God, Brahma. In the Buddhist literature, the Brahma is mentioned as the creator God. And in the Buddhist discourses, we find many references to Brahma, and also Sahampati Brahma, among many others. And then we also know that in the jhanic situations, Rupa Jhana and Arupa Jhana, according to the Buddhist tradition, if a person passes away with jhanas, then that person is born in Brahma world. So which is higher than the world system of the gods. So it is, and then finally we have the Brahma world called, of course, various different Brahma worlds, and Akanittaka. Akanittaka means they are not junior to anybody, which means they are the highest. So the highest point in the universe system, according to Buddhism, is Brahma world. Among the Brahma world, Akanittaka Brahma world. So nothing, that is the bhava. Okay? Rupa bhava and then Arupa bhava. Within this bhava concept, the highest is. So you see something interesting. This concept of Brahma occupies even in the Buddhist tradition, the highest level of existence, right? And we talk about the Brahma Vihara. Brahma is attributed with Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. Yesterday discussion I said that some of the attributes of God have been attributed to different divine beings. So one example is Brahma has been attributed with Metta, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. And those things, Brahma is supposed to be spreading, all over the universe. So you see that Brahma as, the divine being is, very, very high in the Buddhist tradition. Now, the interesting, important thing is this. Although the concept of Brahma as Isaro, Katta, Nimmata is there, Buddhism doesn't believe that there is one, God who is the author of the universe. Actually, according to, when you read the Brahmajala Sutta, this whole creationist view is a result of misunderstanding by one Brahma, right? Because he is born in a world where there is no any other beings, and he lives there a long time, and then finally he thinks that, it would be good if there are others. Now then others start appearing, and then, it's very interesting. According to Buddhist view, this whole creationist view is a misunderstanding, okay? It's a mistake, it's a misunderstanding. Try to look at from that point of view, because in the creationist theistic religions, you are given this story as, the most important thing, because the God or the Brahma created the world. But according to Buddhism, there was no such creation actually. But then how this idea came, Buddhist analysis is, it is a misunderstanding. And then that Brahma, after a long time, is born as a human being, and then renounces, and then meditates, and develops his mind. And then when he sees his former existence, he thinks that, yes, that was, not that Brahma, but, other Brahmas, And then they come to believe that, okay, we are lesser beings, but the highest Brahma is still there. He is everlasting. So you know the story. So this Brahmajala analysis of the concept of Brahma is very interesting. And subsequently what happened is actually in the Advaita Vedanta. Now Advaita Vedanta was developed several centuries after the Buddha. It is based on the Upanishads. Vedanta means Upanishads. Veda, Anta. Anta means tip or the end or conclusion. So the Upanishads are considered to be the conclusion of the Veda. So the Advaita Vedanta was developed subsequently based on the Veda, Upanishads, and then there is a commentary called Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra is a commentary to Upanishads, and then subsequent commentaries on Brahma Sutra, commentary on commentary, developed this idea of Advaita Vedanta. And by the time of Advaita Vedanta, for that actually you have to read Indian philosophy, history of Indian philosophy, seriously. And the personal creator Brahman becomes Brahman. Now Brahman is neuter gender. Now this is a universal concept. But when we say universal concept, actually it is not something in our mind. It is a universal phenomenon. It is the origin of everything. However, it is not a personal God. So ultimately, connection is your Atman, which is called Jivatma, and then this is called Paramatma. So the ultimate religious goal is actually, we will also be talking about it, is to intermingle this. So we have Parama Atma, and then we have Jiva Atma. So this Jiva Atma gradually is elevated and ultimately united with with Brahman. So this concept is described in philosophical analysis as monism. However, this monism, as you know, it's a Western term. Some of the Indian philosophers do not like that term, because monism means there is only one substance in the universe. That is monism. Opposite term is pluralism. Pluralism means there are multiplicity of substances. But then monism means there is only one substance. There is only one thing. Some Indian philosophers do not like this term to describe Advaita Vedanta, because Advaita Vedanta emphasis is Advaita. Dvaita means in Sanskrit language duality, two. So A means negative. Advaita. Advaita means there is no two. So of course when you say there is no two, it means that there is, you can say duality is rejected, and then either it is multiplicity or it is unity. So oneness. Basically Advaita is understood as more to the negation of duality, subject and object. So that duality is negated, and then of course oneness is affirmed but not directly. So there is a question about the term monism, because monism is basically the view that in the universe there is ultimately only one. So the whole idea is that ultimately you end up in this. So in the philosophy, the concept of monism indicates that ultimately everything begins from this one source and then comes down to the universe. That is the idea of monism. In this discussion, what you need to understand is ultimately the personal God becomes not a God, but of course a universal phenomenon. Some philosophers include even Buddhist nirvana in this, but that characterization is not correct. But because nirvana is also impersonal, so some philosophers of religion, you mean the modern philosophers of religion, seem to think that nirvana is also some kind of monism. But in my own writings, I have showed that that understanding is wrong. But anyhow, in the evolution of religion, this concept is very important. So ultimately, the impersonal concept marks gradual development of this process. So it begins with many gods, belief in so many gods, and then gradually comes to one God and then to one substance. That is and interesting thing is, although we talked about the gradual evolution, that does not mean that this concept of personal concept of God are not there. Actually, personal concept of God is very much there. Now, today we know that monotheistic religious traditions, Judaism, Christianity and Islam are very powerful, very widespread. People believe in God. And then also, if you take Hinduism, some people believe in Vishnu, Vaishnavism, Shiva, and so on like that. So monotheistic concept is very popular. Now, we will see later why monotheistic concept is very popular, because it appeals to ordinary human beings' psychology, okay, much more than Buddhist nirvana, okay. So in a way, if you look at the monotheistic concept of God and Buddhist nirvana, it's very difficult to explain why Buddhism is popular. Buddhism can't be popular because people like a concept of God. People need the support, protect. People need someone to pray. All these are ordinary people's psychological needs. Now, in a Buddhist tradition, we don't feel it because we have been brought up in a different manner, right? So, but still in the traditional Buddhist societies, even though people do not pray to Buddha to get things, they have many different lesser divine beings who can help them. So in any Buddhist society, in addition to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, people have different deities. In this country, also any other country, you can see, the offerings have been, offered to these deities, and, you expect worldly protection. So that is there in any society. But then basically we are not considering Buddha to be a god, or that we should address Buddha. So this is the basic difference. Okay, the story is that ultimately when we talk about the types of religion, we have polytheism, henotheism, monotheism, and finally what philosophers call monism, or impersonal concept of this thing. Okay, this is basically the story, and then also I talk to you a little bit about the history of religion. Now, when we talk about history of religion, we can talk about history of religion in general. And also we can talk about history of religion in particular locations or particular history of particular religions. Now, for example, we can discuss the history of what we call today Hindu religion or Indian religion. But then history of Judaism, history of Christianity, history of Islam. That manner, we can talk about the history of individual religions. But apart from that, there is another sense we can talk about history of religion in general, how religious beliefs started among people. Now, yesterday I referred to, I showed you this book, Tyler, James Fraser, and so many ethnologists, anthropologists, sociologists have studied this phenomenon, how religion started in the early primitive societies. So they are using terms like animism, believing in the spirits, dead people, so on and so forth. And also when you look at Veda, Rig Veda, you see how natural objects are being personified. First they are personified or attributed with personality, and then subsequently they are made divine beings. So you can see gradually in the human thought how the concept of God arise. So that is the beginning of Indian religion. Anyhow, I'm not going to discuss with you today the history of religion, but what I am telling you is when you read on your own, of course you can look at it from two different points of view. Beginning of history of religion in general and beginning of each individual religion, okay? So these two different things. Now, anthropologists and ethnologists, ethnographers, this type of scholars have been interested more on the beginning of religion in general. So they have discovered that in primitive societies, ancient societies, there are some commonalities of how religion arose. So that's very interesting. Actually, James Fraser wrote a very interesting book called Golden Bough. That's a huge book, actually, Golden Bough, which talks about, describes, the religion in the ancient societies. So the animism, magic, belief in dead people, all sorts of things. And then life after death, around all these things, there are a lot of beliefs started. And finally, you can see in the systematic religion, some of these issues are being discussed. Right? Life after death was a belief. But then when you come to Buddhism, when you come to Hinduism and other religions, there are more definitive answers to life after death. Right? Like that. So therefore, the history of religion has to be understood in these two ways. History of particular religion and also history of religion in general. Okay. All right, so with this introduction, I will like to sum up our discussion about general discussion. Today I would like to move into ultimate goal of religion. But before going into that, do you have any questions or any comments or anything? Yes, sir? Yeah.
What is Buddha's one religion?
What is that?
What is Buddha's? Buddha's religion. What is Buddha's one?
Order?
Buddha's one religion.
You mean the order of the world religion?
Earliest